I've just learned a new term, expressive individualism. Expressive individualism takes the self to be the fundamental unit of human reality. Not the community, not the family, not relationships. The truth of the self is not determined externally, but internally. This sounds overly complicated and philosophical, but in short, I think it boils down to one word: selfishness. And maybe even isolation. In this worldview, we're not defined by, nor are responsible for, the other. This belief system is so ingrained in our Western culture that you may be thinking, well, what's wrong with that? That individualism, me, myself, and I. And yet, we scratch our heads wondering why suicide rates are up, why is there an opioid crisis, why are teenagers so stressed and depressed? I wonder why. And the one thing that could save them, give them hope, which is healthy, loving relationships, is the one thing that they're encouraged to ignore, because it's all about me, myself, and I. This is completely opposite to our Catholic faith. God is a family, a relationship. Christ is born into a family. We are called to unity and relationship. God wants a relationship with us. Actually, we are called to dependence. Dependence on God. May this Lent be for you and your loved ones a time of relationship, a time of dependence, a time when we realize that we are not alone. Indeed, we are created for love. I'm Deacon Pedro, and this is the Salt and Light Hour. Hello and welcome to an all-new Salt and Light Hour. I'm Deacon Pedro, and sitting here with me is Mark Matthews, all the way from...
Hello?
Yeah, the Angelino.
I'm the Angelino.
You're the
We
Angelino.
haven't drowned yet in the rain.
Oh, is it raining a lot?
We have had record rainfall, so
Wow,
El Nino.
I'm
That's what happens
sorry.
here in an El Nino year.
I'm sorry that
rain.
haven't even seen it in the news. Weather patterns are all over the place anyway.
Celebrity homes sliding down the hillsides, so...
Yeah, your home? Sorry, did you say
no.
your home?
I live in the flat valley. It's only if you're rich enough to get to live on the side of a hill that will slide down when it rains.
Okay, well, I'm sorry that it's raining. Maybe Lent is a baptismal time as well. It's not just a time for penance. There's this baptismal character. So the whole, Noah and the ark and the rain and baptism. So that can help with your reflections.
I've definitely been feeling that. So
yeah. All right. Okay. So today, my friend, Danny Torchia will be joining us with his wife, Antonia. They've been doing a little segment called Rearing Rebels in the Domestic Church. And it's all about how to raise your children to be countercultural, actually.
Ooh, I like that.
So they're very good. So they've talked about in the past, they've talked about how to set up your home, what to have in the home, what to not have in the home, to create an environment. And I believe today they're going to talk about a little bit about how to program, like what do you put on the family program?
Not my kind of programming.
No, not your kind of programming, but like what activities are the kids doing, how much, and all that is what I think. So that's going to be in about 5 minutes. Rearing Rebels with Danny and Antonia Torchia in about 5 minutes after the song. And then you're going to be here to tell us a little bit more about...
about the risks of AI. Surrogate friendship is what I'm calling it.
Surrogate friendship. Okay, so this is your new topic of artificial intelligence with Mark Matthews.
Everybody's talking about AI. It seems like a lot of my themes are all in AI this time, but it's going to be a big technology. It's going to change everything in entertainment.
So hopefully that can help our listeners not be so terrified about AI.
Yes.
So that's in about 15 minutes. Mark Matthews, a little bit about AI, surrogate friendship with your artificial intelligence buddies. And then, Mark, I'm sure you living in Los Angeles are familiar with the Erwin Brothers, Andrew and John Erwin, filmmakers. You might remember the film October Baby, I Can Only Imagine, I Still Believe, and then most recently, Jesus Revolution. So they have a new film called Ordinary Angels, which is in theaters right now, starring Hilary Swank and Alan Ritchson. And if you haven't heard of this movie, I watched it. It's a beautiful, beautiful, very well done, true story, or very much based or inspired by a true story about a widower who's trying to make ends meet. His youngest daughter is waiting for a liver transplant. And then this stranger, played by Hilary Swank, who's dealing with her own issues, she comes in to do everything she can to help. And it's just a beautiful story of faith, everyday miracles, and ordinary angels, which is what the film is called. So we're going to be speaking with Andrew Erwin, one of the two brothers, in our second half hour so that's in about 25 minutes. So hope people can stick around for that and learn about this new film. And then we're going to be meeting a singer-songwriter. She's not new in the world of singing and songwriting, but she's new in our program. Her name is Laura Huval from Louisiana. I've known about her for a few years now. She's featured in a program that Salt and Light Media collaborated with Oregon Catholic Press called Music and Mission. And I'm always happy to introduce new artists to the Salt and Light Hour.
Well, especially if they're Cajun too.
Well, and she's the real thing, like the real, like French speaking Cajun. So Laura Huval is going to join us at the end of the program. So in about 45 minutes. And of course, we're going to get to listen to some of her music, which is actually not Cajun music.
Oh, really? Not that Cajun? Okay. Well,
no. Well, her worship music isn't. So I'm going to talk to her about that.
I still give her points for where she's from. I love
just
Cajuns
Lafayette, Louisiana. Yeah, it's good. And they have good, like, gumbo shrimp or whatever. So yeah, Laura Huval in 45 minutes, and we're going to listen to her music as well. And so if you're not going to be around, remember that you can always go to our website, somedia.org. You click on podcasts. That's where you can listen to the show. You can also subscribe to the Salt and Light Hour Catholic podcast wherever you get your podcasts, or you can do AI. You can actually talk to your voice activated device and just say, hey, play the Salt and Light Hour Catholic podcast, and it actually works. So that's pretty cool.
Yay for AI.
AI. Okay, so Mark, let's start with a song. Here is Laura Huval with Jesus Be My Song from her album, It's Never Too Late.
My faithful friend, my sturdy home. You melt my heart of stone. You're my medicine when I'm sick and alone. Oh, Jesus, the greatest love I've ever known. I'll never turn away. My love for you will ever stay. Oh, healer, my redeemer.
That was Laura Huval with her song, Jesus Be My Song, from her album, It's Never Too Late. And we're going to be speaking with Laura Huval at the end of the program, so I hope that you can still be with us for that. And now it's time for Rearing Rebels Through Our Domestic Church with Danny and Antonia Torchia. Danny, Antonia, welcome back to the program. It's good to see you.
Thanks for having us again.
Great to be back. What are we going to talk about today?
So we're going to continue. You're going to continue, I presume, giving us tips on how to bring up successful rebels, countercultural children. Yes?
Yes, well, and when you speak of it that way, it gets me excited because we are men and women on a mission. In fact, the Holy Father speaks about we are mission, which Deacon Pedro, you know that I
Yes.
come from a marketing background. Well, we know that the world wants us to be on a mission, but it's usually a mission of here, feed your carnal lowest desires for this, that on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And don't need to name them all.
No.
But yeah, so what we wanted to talk about today in our journey of rearing rebels, we talked about, how do we structure our home so that it's a home that is structured physically for the world, the culture we want of prayer and religion. Now we talked about, our kids are getting older, Deacon, and we're in a busy season actually in our life, where the kids have a lot of activities, well-intentioned activities from a lot of sources, namely school.
Mm-hmm.
But it's forced us to think about, oh my goodness, how are we going to structure our programming?
Okay.
Like, well, how do we spend our time? So Antonia and I have really been discussing how do we demonstrate to the kids and to the teachers and principals that we are friends with, that we prioritize prayer and faith above all.
Right. And I like in your intro, Pedro, you talked about how can we successfully rear rebels, right? And oddly enough, we went to an awards ceremony yesterday for sports activities at school. And, one of the key messages was success for these coaches is 20 years from now, having developed young men and women that are giving back to their communities, are living like Christ, etc. And so we won't really know if we're successful. Our kids are still growing in 20 years, but, we have to put the time and the effort and the intention now so that in 20 years, there will be fruit. We pray that we see it and that we're able to enjoy that success for them. And so the choices we're making now as a family, like Danny said, there's so many things in our lives that are being thrown at us, like different activities, sports, activities at school, different things the kids can participate. And so really choosing as a husband and wife together to say, what's our priority for our family and how are we going to make that happen? Right. And then really looking and saying, what are the activities, if that priority is prayer time and spending time with Christ and exposing our children to different events at church, different communities, then let's go out and find those activities and make sure that we're participating in them.
Yeah, so it's the long game. It's okay. So so how do you guys make it work? And I'm very curious to know as to how much the children are part of this conversation.
Well, that's a good one. Well, we to make it work, we go through a lot of kilometers or mileage or miles, because for example, we found an adoration program. Thanks be to God, it's a monthly adoration event organized by the Knights of Columbus and 4 or 5 parishes. And we've been able to put them on our agenda. So we have to drive for them a little bit, but it's well worth it because we're able to bring my Antonia's parents to this, and they're 82 years old. And so we go as a family, and we prioritize it, and the kids love it. They understand that we're going to spend time with our Eucharistic Lord and spend time with abuelo and abuela, the grandparents here in this case. And it's really become like a little pilgrimage every month to go to this adoration. And we're looking, like now it's Lent, thanks be to God. So we're going to the Stations of the Cross or fish fries to meet people at our local. We're visiting different churches in order to meet people because we're new to this community, this region, but also so that the kids understand that it is Lent. And I know Antonia is going to add some things on that, but I want to say, Deacon Pedro, that my parents come from the Middle East, and I do like some of the Eastern spirituality that is indigenous, inherent to the Catholic Church, whether it's Chaldean, Maronite, Coptic, etc., or Maronite, Amalekite. So I want to say, for me, the theme for me is like a great Lent. I want this to be a great Lent, and that's it's an old term in the Eastern Church, but it's new for me as a Roman Catholic to really refer to this as a great Lent. So with our kids, we're working also not only to go to adoration and special events, but also at home, to really double down and support each other with our penance or our sacrifices that are hopefully bringing us closer to the Lord.
Yeah. So, I'm a very organized person. I think, we each bring our own gifts. And so, I have that big calendar in front of us to say, hey, okay, if we're going to go to adoration on the Friday or to the Stations of the Cross or the fish fry, that means that we're not doing something else, right? So there's definitely, the kids understand. Danny and I have to have those conversations too, to really like set out what's coming in our weeks ahead. But then when the kids were little, we had a chore chart with stickers.
Yeah.
And so for Lent, they've gotten, these books where, they have to track daily how they're doing on their Lenten promises, right?
Nice.
And so I think that's something that anyone can do with tracking, right? But it for the kids, I think it helps them to really physically and visually see, okay, what are your Lenten promises? You're going to write them down, and every day we're going to track how you're going to track how you're doing. We'll check in with you because we want to be here to support you, and we want you guys to check in with us as well. But it's really a physical look at it and see it in front of you. And I know like Danny's a very visual person. And so having that in front of you to see is very important for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like having that book because I can then lord over them. And did I just say that? Oops.
Okay. Any other tips, suggestions for our listeners if they're really struggling with being more intentional with that long game?
I want to share that it's nice. It's good to show the kids your vulnerability. And Antonia, you might be seeing that now that as we're on the brink of losing control because of these encroaching sports factors, like good things, right? But sometimes I tell the kids, hey, if we don't work at this, we're going to lose our prayer life. If we don't, we can't just go and Antonia has heard me almost cry publicly in front of the kids. I can't take running around after every single day of the week to go pick up this person, go drop off that person. Everybody gets home at 8 p.m. and then we have no time for prayer. They've seen me getting frustrated. And I know that might be, Danny, the leader, I was joking around of lording over my kids. I don't want to lord over them. They see me almost cry because we need to hold on to the priorities, which is faith. And I've shown them that if we don't do this, it's going to slip.
Yeah.
And then they agree. And the same thing is when we tell our teachers or the parents or the principals, like we're pulling our kids for a week from school, and we had to tell them we're doing it for religious purposes for these reasons. And then they, instead of being adversarial with us or defensive, they were like, oh, good idea. So I think being a communicator, being a hyper communicator is helpful.
Yeah, right. No, and making choices is good. I can hear the many voices inside my head about, well, he can't be in the soccer team because all our practices are on Sunday. And then that just right there means that they just can't do soccer or hockey or whatever it is, because that's the reality, right? Or I suppose you can figure that out.
You can figure that out, yeah.
Yeah, you definitely have to, you have to look around, you have to be creative because there are opportunities where it's not going to be on the Sundays, or you find the teams where they do the practices during the week. We're lucky that the kids in our case are participating with school. So it's really that Monday to Friday that's going to be busy, but then that keeps our weekend, and our Sundays sacred to be able to focus on church and that day of rest.
Yeah. I love that you guys start. I mean, obviously, and this is probably the biggest advice for me and for all parents, to start in the womb, start when they're really, really little. So then it just doesn't become this weird thing that you're trying to impose on them, and that they're part of this conversation. And it sounds like they enjoy participating in these activities. And I suppose if you found an activity that they didn't enjoy, you maybe choose something different.
We do listen to them.
Yeah, that's very important. No, well, that's important. They need to feel listened, and especially as they become teenagers. We have to leave it there, guys. But I always appreciate your suggestions. I wish my kids were younger so I could try some of these things with them now. But I know a lot of our listeners are also benefiting from this. So thank you, and happy Lent.
Thank you. You too.
A great Lent.
Great Lent.
Great Lent. Danny and Antonia Torchia are the parents of 4 children. Danny's the managing director of Torchia Communications. You can follow him on Twitter at Dan Torchia, and you can learn more at dialogueandgrace.com.
Hi, this is Father Rob Gallian. You're listening to the Salt and Light Hour with Deacon Pedro.
You can watch Salt and Light Television on our streaming platform, Salt and Light Plus, at slmedia.org, and also through our Roku and Amazon Fire app. You can learn more at slmedia.org/plus. And now it's time for What's Good in Hollywood with our Hollywood Undercover Missionary, Mark Matthews, who's sitting here dying to tell us about his new friend, his new artificial friend.
My new artificial friend, AI.
Okay, what insight are you giving us today, my friend?
So as you know, like a lot of my world revolves around AI these days, and that is the way entertainment, Hollywood is going to be going, even if a lot of people don't know it yet.
Yeah.
And so I talk a lot about AI, and I spend a lot of time dispelling what I think are ridiculous things to be afraid of. And then usually I'll get asked, well, what do you think the real risks of AI are? And one of my common responses is surrogate friendship. And it's this potential that using AI, we might be able to fulfill our human need for social contact while giving us none of the real blessing or benefit of a relationship with a real human being.
Yeah. And I was gonna, I actually don't think it's crazy because
well, yeah. And you say that, and people are like, that's crazy.
No, I don't. I can see it.
Yeah, but I kind of say, like, we've already been doing this for like 30, 40, 50 years with sitcom TV. And you think about, like, well, how often do people have a TV on in the background just for the noise of people talking? So when you watch a TV show, are you really watching it for the entertainment? Or is it just like there's some kind of, like, you know, itch it scratches, a social need for social contact?
Yeah, for relationship is what you're saying, really.
Yeah. And you think, like, it's okay, it's passive, I'm just listening to their interaction, but it's like, well, you know, sometimes people do that in situations too. You know, they just sit and they listen. And if you watch a sitcom, you know, the next day at work, you could be like, hey, did you see that crazy thing that Seinfeld did last night? And you can kind of both joke about it and relate almost like you would to a real friend.
Yeah. And they feel like they actually know that character or even the actor. Yeah.
It's kind of like you feel like you need them. And so it's interesting because this connects with what we know about neuroscience very well. Neuroscientists have discovered these things called mirror neurons, and they activate when either a person does a particular act or they observe someone doing a particular act.
Okay.
And so at some level, kind of like very unconscious, our brain sees no difference sometimes between some of these activities.
Huh. Interesting. Okay. So either we do it or just watch someone doing it. Same thing.
Exactly. Yeah, we see it. And so like, that's just, you know, TV that's perhaps made for everyone. And so I would ask, I say, well, can you imagine how this would change if, say, all of a sudden Amazon Alexa starts asking you how your day was? You know, be like, hello.
Well, can I just jump in because she is kind of freaking me out because the news, I don't know if this happens to everybody else, but now every time I ask a question, it's like, Alexa, what's the weather outside? She's always starts with Pedro. I hope you're having a good day.
Oh, really?
Or like, good morning, Pedro. And then she tells me the weather. It's like, it's very freaky.
Exactly. And it's funny because, like, I think, you know, people who are creating the media, who are creating AI, they know this. They want you to have that social connection with it. And so that's just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. I think AI is going to open the door to all sorts of extreme personalization of media. If you didn't see it, a week or two ago, OpenAI released something called Sora, which is their latest video generation system. So you just type in a prompt, I want a woman walking through the streets of Tokyo, and poof, instant, high definition, well, not instant, but very high quality, high definition video. And it had everyone really excited, and some people not so excited. Tyler Perry canceled an $800 million expansion he was planning for his studio when he saw Sora. He's just like, oh, it's going to change everything. And so I've been talking with all my old, visual effects buddies going, time to look for a new job.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. So, okay.
Yeah. So just, can you imagine? So things that we thought would be science fiction are very quickly becoming science fact. And so I think these technologies will just have the ability to supercharge this surrogate socialization. What if it's not just a sitcom, but it's a sitcom with people that you know in it? They're putting, I don't know, your mom or your dad in it. Or what if what if Amazon Alexa starts listening to everything going on in your home, and then she's like, hey, I made a sitcom about your life, and it could, you could watch us at the end of the day.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Very scary. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But this is crazy. This is really the way things are going. And I'm a pretty rational, I don't know, maybe pessimist when it sometimes comes to some of these technologies, but all these things will be very possible.
Yeah. But to your original point about having a surrogate friend, I think it doesn't even need to get to that point, because you just need someone to talk to, or someone to listen to you, right?
Yeah.
Or something to listen to you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So it doesn't even need to get to anything that extreme. It could just be, Alexa going, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Tell me more.
Yeah. Or I arrive at home and it knows that I've arrived, and it knows where I came from. How was your day at work?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you took the day off. Oh, I see you stopped by the bar on the way home.
Yes.
Do you have a problem?
Yeah, that would be.
So, and I think the reason this has me worried is that there's unfortunately a very human tendency that we have to go towards the substitute and not the real thing. It's just that we don't want to face the reality of real life. We don't want to deal with real people, with real demands and real problems. And if you really dig into the spiritual, well, why can't we do this? It goes right back to the fall of Adam and Eve. The man and the wife hid themselves from the Lord God among the trees of the garden. It says in Genesis 3. It's just our natural reaction. We want to hide. We're like a child that covers our face before something scary. So, it's kind of like, well, sounds a little bit doom and gloom. What do we do? What's our response to this? And my main purpose today is just to be aware of this phenomena, is just see it in yourself and see that, when I'm consuming media, it might be trying to satisfy this real need that I have for socialization. So maybe I shouldn't do so much of that. Good thing to do during Lent. Go and seek out a real human relationship. And then just practice classic, Catholic human virtue, in terms of being, that's, what we get from a real relationship.
Yeah. Being really present to that other person, learning how to communicate intelligently. Wow. Okay. Yes. I'm going to have to think about this, but I do see the parallels with just television or listening to a podcast. You feel like you know the person, you have a relationship, and it's because we are built for relationship.
Even us, even you and me, I'm sure our listeners feel like they know us.
It is. Yeah. I actually agree. I think that's true. And we'd love to get to know our listeners.
That's true.
But that's not always possible. But yeah, and I said this in the opening commentary to the program, that we're built for relationship. So we long for relationship. And so this idea that you just said, that we tend to gravitate to the substitute rather to the real thing, that is concerning.
It's like artificial sweetener. You could drink you'd think you'd be getting nutrition, but you'd be left empty, and you're like, I need energy. So
that's exactly it. And my hope is that ultimately the truth wins out, and that people will realize that that's what's happening, as with artificial sweetener or anything that's artificial. Okay, so something to think about here, especially during Lent. Thank you, Mark. Sorry that you're going to have to let go of your new friend.
No.
No, what's good in Hollywood? What's good or not so good with artificial intelligence with Mark Matthews, our undercover Hollywood missionary. You can follow him at HU Missionary. Coming up in our second half hour, producer Andrew Erwin of the Erwin Brothers tells us about their latest film, Ordinary Angels, and we meet singer-songwriter Laura Huval. So stay tuned. Welcome to the Salt and Light Hour Part 2. I'm Deacon Pedro. Andrew and John Erwin, best known as the Erwin Brothers, are Christian film directors, writers, and producers. You may be familiar with some of their films: October Baby, Mom's Night Out, I Can Only Imagine, I Still Believe, and most recently, Jesus Revolution. Their newest film, out in theaters right now, is Ordinary Angels, starring Hilary Swank and Alan Ritchson. The film is inspired by the true story of Sharon Stevens, who rallies the community to help a widowed father save the life of his youngest daughter, who needs a liver transplant. It is a beautiful, inspiring story of faith, miracles, and the power of perseverance. To learn more, last week I spoke with Andrew Erwin. Andrew, welcome to the Salt and Light Hour.
Yeah, it's so good to be with you, Pedro. I really appreciate the time, man.
It is, and I'm very excited. I got to see the film, and I have to say, I think you've been hearing this from a lot of people. I love the film. It's such a great story. It's really a gold mine of a story, and I want to talk about that. But before it's been a long time since you and your brother John started making films. I remember October Baby, so long ago. Tell me a little bit about how you guys got into the industry.
Yeah, October Baby, we shot that 15 years ago now.
Wow.
It's been an amazing journey. We got started as kids. My dad was in radio, and so we kind of grew up kind of as studio rats, just kind of hanging out. And then somebody put a camera in our hands, and we started making these little short films. And then we did it at college for a little while.
Nice.
And I kind of had this moment with God where I was just like, all I have is a camera in my hands. I don't know how that could make a difference. And somebody challenged me to give that to God and say, let him figure out how to use it. Never would have thought that all these years later we'd be doing feature films. But my brother had enough ambition for both of us.
Yeah.
And he pushed us in that direction. And then next thing you know, we went from doing music videos to directing October Baby. And now we're,
you're
the film's in.
Yeah. Did you think when you were thinking about making films originally that your faith would be part of that process, or is that something that kind of
we always had a dream of doing that. I never thought that was possible, because when we first got started, it was in the early 2000s. Passion of the Christ had not come out yet, and so it had been decades since there had been a really substantial film about faith, since the late 60s. And so we didn't think that was a path that was possible. And then Mel Gibson changed the game. And then at that point, we're like, let's do it. But we don't even know where to start. So it was, there was a group of us that all started together. It was Dallas Jenkins from The Chosen, Alejandro from Sound of Freedom, Devon Franklin, the Kendrick Brothers, and then us. And we were all had this desire to do it, but didn't know where to start. But we've all kind of pushed forward a little bit at a time. And in the past 3 years, it's really had its breakout moment. And I think really solidified the studios wanting to invest in stories like these. So that leads us to Ordinary Angels, and to have a 2-time Oscar winner Hilary Swank in it, and Alan Ritchson. We would have never, if you had told me 15 years ago that was possible, I would have told you were crazy.
Yeah, and I think I wouldn't have asked 15 years ago, because I wouldn't have thought it was possible either.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't think it's a secret. We know that films have the power, like that type style of storytelling has the power to really make a change inside people's hearts. So is your mission to tell good stories, or is your mission to evangelize, or both?
Both. Both. It's, it all leads to the bottom line that you just described, but it's a double bottom line. So the idea is the only way to evangelize, I think, effectively, and to be able to reach outside the church walls, is to make it worth purchasing a ticket for, which means it has to be entertaining.
Yeah.
So the destination for us that allowed that were true stories, and true stories that ultimately led to this climactic kind of finish of a rush of hope that became our brand. So when we did the movie I Can Only Imagine as our kind of our breakout moment,
Right.
that rush of hope became the blueprint of every story that we pursue now. It has to leave the audiences inspired to go out and change the world, and also leave the curious, benevolent skeptic, general moviegoer going, I want to understand more about this Christianity.
Yeah.
And it's an invitation to people outside the church walls to try. It's an introduction to the idea of redemption. And to do that, we don't have to fill in all the questions. We just plant the seed and allow it to kind of grow on its own.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you are doing that, and I mean everybody has that yearning, that desire for hope, and we're help you. You're helping them with that. You've said that Hollywood is not the hope of the world. The church is the hope of the world. Tell me more about that. What do you mean?
I think I have a very specific view on Hollywood and the church and understanding the purpose for either. And I think a lot of people think that Hollywood's the big bad guy, and it's not. I think Hollywood's a business.
Yep.
It can be hijacked for good or evil, and people do both. But ultimately, it's a business that they see it through dollars and cents.
Yeah.
And I think we avoided it for years, and we had to prove to them that we could make money for their industry. So I think it's more of a kind of heartless, kind of robotic, system that's more about like, can it make money? And if it makes money, they'll do your films.
Yeah.
So taking that off the table, it's not the bad guy, but it's also not the answer. As filmmakers, our job, I think, is to ask the right questions, to plant the seed in people's hearts that start the conversation. Life change happens when that conversation. Alejandro Monteverde from Sound of Freedom, I had him on my podcast the other day, and he said he loves to do movies that the real story starts when the movie ends. And I think that is the case, that if we can start the conversation and allow the church then to step in and say, let me tell you the rest of the story.
Yeah.
That's when life change happens.
Yeah.
People's lives change through the local church.
Yeah. And I think you're doing that. And definitely this film does that. A lot of real life stories do that, and you're able to find them. How did you come across this particular story?
This one was one that found us from the most unlikely place. It wasn't a person of faith that brought it to us. It was Dave Matthews from the Dave Matthews Band.
Oh, really?
And he had seen this story, this real life story, years ago, and it had moved him, and he had not been able to get it out of his head. And he took it to a producing friend, John Berg, that produced movies like Elf. They brought it to Lionsgate, our parent company, and Lionsgate brought it and said, this is a story of faith. And when we looked at the story, number one, it was too good to be true. It was an amazing
Yeah.
Secondly, we're like, this is Southeast Christian Church. We know this church well in Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, wow.
The chairman of our board at Kingdom is an elder at that church. And so it just was kind of always meant to be our story. And John Gunn stepped in to direct it. And all of a sudden, we're making the movie.
Yes. Is it a story of faith or faith in God, or is it a story about people coming together to help each other? I guess it can be both.
It's both. For this one, it is a story of faith. I think, I love the fact that Ed is a Christian in our story, and Alan Ritchson plays him beautifully, but he's a Christian that's become so disillusioned and disheartened that
with good reason, yeah.
That he feels like God's forgotten about him. And the whole point of the movie is to remind him that he and his daughters matter to God.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it leads him back to his church. And his church is the one that gets to save her life. And then the unlikely redemption of this hero that Hilary Swank plays that's a bit of a black sheep or a lost cause. And Sharon ends up being kind of the catalyst of the story. That's the most unlikely person to be the angel in the story. So I think that for us, to a general movie public, it's just a really good feel-good movie. But the very simple idea that profoundly is presented is the church is a safe place, and the church gets to be the hero of the story rather than the butt of the joke. And I think for an outside audience, our desire is to, again, start that conversation that allows it to be an invitation. So if a person ends up in the movie theater and watching this story, it causes them to have the courage to step into a church again. We've done our job.
Well, that's good. That was gonna be my next and last question. That what is your hope that people were gonna get? And obviously you want, as you said, the story to start at the end of the movie. Part of that story might mean that people might be drawn to church. Part of that story might mean that people feel that they can actually make a difference in other people's lives.
That too. I mean, that's the second part, is the idea of today with so much things being negative, kind of a story of hope becomes very subversive. It becomes very kind of counterculture. And for people to step in the theater saying, I'm just one person, how do I make a difference? Well, the point of view that Sharon comes to is it makes a difference for just this one person.
Yeah.
And when you do that, all of a sudden there's a ripple effect. And that's Sharon's story, that's little Michelle's story, and ultimately can be the story of the person watching the film.
Yeah, and that's that children's story that's featured in the film about the starfish. I love that story. I've been telling it my kids since they were little. Before you go, tell us a little bit about Unsung Hero, that I believe is a new film that's coming out.
Yeah, the Unsung Hero I'm really passionate about. This one I executive produced. My friend from the band For King and Country. People love their music. So Joel Smallbone from that band, that's one of the brothers. It's his family story, and they were immigrants coming from Australia, family of 9 people that ended up losing everything when they moved to the U.S. And they were struggling to kind of survive. And their father thought that the family was in the way until he found out the family was the way. And his daughter discovered her voice as a singer. And it's the family just fighting to survive. And ultimately, the unsung hero of the family is his wife, their mother, that held the family together. And it was just really, really cool. Joel brought it to me. He said, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I want to co-direct this film with a friend, but I also want to play my father. And so he stepped into it. And I was like, you got a 20% chance of sticking this landing, but I'll go with you. And so we all stepped on board to help make it, and filmed it last year. And he absolutely crushed it. It is a feel-good underdog story that is going to really catch audiences off guard. And I haven't seen the response from an audience on a film like this since we did I Can Only Imagine. It's special.
Okay, wow, that's looking forward to that. So Ordinary Angels is in theaters next week, and Unsung Hero will be in theaters later this year?
April 26th, a couple weeks.
Very soon. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. Andrew, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you for coming on the show and telling us a little bit about you and about what you do and about the film.
Always, Pedro, we love the interviews. We love to talk stories with you, and we hope to do it again soon.
Yes, thank you. God bless. Andrew Erwin is co-producer of the new film Ordinary Angels, which is in theaters now. Find out more about it and where you can watch it at ordinaryangels.movie. Here now is our featured artist of the week, Laura Huval, with Footprints from her album It's Never Too Late.
When I'm broken, you mend me. Your words refresh me. You make each day new. Oh Lord, you carry me. Oh Lord, you carry me. When I'm drowning, you save me. Your angels surround me. When I'm in the depths of despair, oh Lord, you carry me. You carry me through the storm. You shelter me from all harm. In the footprints I see, you were always carrying me, and you will always carry me. And when I'm empty, you fill me. Your mercy finds me. And when I think I can't go on, oh Lord, you carry me. You carry me through the storm. You shelter me from all harm. In the footprints I see,
We're listening to Laura Huval with Footprints from her album, It's Never Too Late. Laura Huval is a Grammy-nominated recording artist who grew up in Cajun country, Louisiana, where she still lives. When she's not speaking at events, writing books, leading worship, directing music at her parish, St. Joseph's in Cecilia, Louisiana, teaching, running retreats, she is writing music and recording or performing with her band, Sweet Cecilia. There's so much to talk about, and so I am very happy to welcome Laura Huval to the Salt and Light Hour. Laura, welcome to the program. It's so good to meet you in person.
You too, Deacon Pedro, as we say in Cecilia. Hi, y'all.
Hi, y'all.
Hi, y'all.
Okay. Let's go back because you grew up there. Your dad was a musician, so I know there was music in the home. But tell me a little bit more about growing up. What was it like growing up in the I guess it's not Huval, your
Yes.
maiden name.
Yes.
Household.
So,
Berard.
yeah, my maiden Berard. Very good,
Yes.
Deacon Pedro. Yes. So, yes, my maiden name Berard or Berard. You can
Berard,
say it a
yes.
few different ways. So, music has always been such a huge gift to my family. My parents met and fell in love in the St. Joseph Church choir loft,
Oh my
where
gosh. And you're
where
still
I'm
there.
now. I'm still there, music director. My mom was a beautiful and still a beautiful vocalist, and my father was the guitarist in the choir.
Wow.
And their love story is really precious. My mom was a widow at the age of 29, and my dad was a mere 21 years old. And my mom tells this precious story how, the little guitarist would wink at me and smile at me. And then he asked her out on a date to go eat pizza. And she said, I laughed at him. And how we say it in Louisiana, Cajun French, "Mais boo, you too young." And 8 months later, they were married.
Oh my gosh.
32 years.
Okay, so back up. So
Yeah.
real Cajun, like actual like French.
Yes. So my father actually is the youngest of 8 children, and French was his first language.
Really?
Same with my husband as well. So we live in a unique area in the United States. Our region is called Acadiana.
Yeah.
And we're ancestors of the French Catholics who were dispersed
From Canada.
From Canada.
Yeah, from New
And it's
Brunswick.
legit true.
Acadians, I know.
And so it's so beautiful that our Catholic faith has remained so strong. And so I call us the Holy Land of the United States, kind of, because it's such a special, special place. And French language and French music is still very much a big part of our identity here.
Okay. And I imagine that because of that, the Catholic faith is also important.
It absolutely is. We are so blessed here because pretty much everything that we do revolves around the liturgical calendar, and much like a lot of the United States, even though they don't realize it, but Mardi Gras, Lent, we have of course, these huge festivals, Festival Acadien Creole, Festival International, and listen how cool this is. They start off each of those Sundays of those festivals with a Catholic mass in French.
Oh my God, really? Still?
Yeah, still. And it's a beautiful thing to witness. All of it coming together, right? The language, the faith, the culture. Yeah, it's awesome.
So I mean, your parents were in the choir, your dad's a guitarist.
Yeah.
Obviously you grew up in that church.
I did. So my father, looking back at the life he lived, yesterday was his 10-year anniversary of his passing. Yeah. He was a Cajun fiddle player. And literally, Cajun music fed my family. He toured around the United States, Europe. He went to, I think, Mexico, and he would share the faith. He loved Jesus. He would evangelize on the stage. It was pretty awesome. And then, of course, sharing the beautiful Cajun songs and our culture. So, yeah, I feel like there's a part of me that's carrying on that tradition. Yeah,
of course.
Sure.
So when did your musical... I mean, there's two things, because I'm sure you were singing and dancing around the house as a little girl, but when did you start writing music? When did that become more of a serious thing?
Yeah, so, in high school, I kind of dabbled in songwriting, but whenever my band, Sweet Cecilia, got together is when I really started cultivating that gift. The seed had been planted, but, it takes some time to kind of get that seed to grow. And so just stepping out in faith and just starting to really write. So probably 20 years ago, I really started getting into it.
Okay.
And then that was secular music. And then in 2018 is when I really started to use the gifts of music, songwriting especially, to share the gospel.
So what happened? What changed?
That's a very good question, Deacon. So there was a priest friend of ours, Father Michael Delcom, and he would tell me, Laura, you have a gift and you need to be like using that gift to build a kingdom, like, right, using your charism of creativity to evangelize. And so at that time I was ready to start. He had, my kids were growing up, they were a little older, I had more time. And in 2021, I committed fully to the music ministry and songwriting. I quit my job teaching, and the Holy Spirit's taken me on such a beautiful adventure of evangelizing.
So being a music director at the parish is also a recent thing.
Yes, that's since about 2021 as well.
Okay. So it all is coming together.
Yeah.
Okay, so when will your Cajun music align with the worship music? Because I'd love to hear those rhythms, those beats, those sounds. No?
So I like that. Yes, Deacon Pedro. So as a matter of fact, I have a project coming up that I'm working on called Sing the Rosary. It's going to hopefully be out in October, in the month of the Rosary, where I'm going to write new melodies to these prayers, right? And put it in music form. So it's going to be a longer meditation, but definitely I am going to most likely do a whole decade in Cajun French.
Oh, I love it.
I'll sing it. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah. I mean, I'd love to hear those Cajun music influences in your worship music. So you have two worship albums, or can I call them? I mean, they're worship albums. Yeah. I presume that there's more. You're working on the Rosary Project. What would you say would be your hope, not just for your music, but for your ministry?
That's a beautiful question. It just that, that all who listen would just feel the love and the peace that the Holy Spirit wants to give them, and just to be open to the gospel, and just to feel hopeful. And that's why I try to write and feel joy, because that's a big part of my personality, but also a fruit of the Spirit that I've been blessed with my whole life. And so just to feel those things, peace, hope, love, and joy. Yeah. Be fruity.
You do radiate joy. I can't say you don't. I'm always intrigued by album titles, and so It's Never Too Late. What's the connection there? Does that have to do with hope and joy as well?
Yes, it does. Initially, I think it was more of like, okay, it's time. Like, I've waited. I think I was almost 38 years old by the time I decided, okay, I'm going to release this album. So, but then it took on a greater meaning of just, it's never too late. We are living in a world where we compare ourselves, right, to one another, and like, what is it? Comparison is the thief of joy. And so just like, never ever think that you can't do something. Like, it's never too late. But in the spiritual world also, I mean, look at the cross, and look at Jesus and the thief next to him, right? Jesus says it's never too late. Like, you're gonna be with me in paradise. Like, Jesus, remember me. It's never too late, he tells us. So it's never too late to begin that journey. And I think it's every day should be that way. Like, it's a new beginning, right?
It's true. What a beautiful, you're right. Living in the moment. And absolutely. Laura, thank you. It's been so good meeting you and chatting with you. Thank you for what you're doing and for sharing your beautiful music with us today. And I really look forward to the Cajun French Rosary. So we can bring you back on the show, and we can play maybe a little bit of it on the program. Thank you so much. God bless, and let's stay in touch.
Yes, thank you so much, Deacon Pedro.
You can learn all about Laura Huval at her website, laurahuval.com. That's also where you can get her album, It's Never Too Late. Her most recent album, Raised in the Choir Loft, is published by Oregon Catholic Press. If you missed any part of our conversation, or you want to listen to it again, just head over onto our website, slmedia.org. Here now is Laura Huval with Make Room from her album, It's Never Too Late.
Make room.
listening to Laura Huval with Make Room from her album It's Never Too Late. And that will take us to the end of our program. To listen to the full show, go to our website, slmedia.org/podcast. You can also subscribe to the Salt and Light Hour Catholic podcast everywhere. So no excuses for missing our show. You should try your voice-activated device. Just ask for the Salt and Light Hour Catholic podcast. You can also find out more about watching Salt and Light television through our streaming platform, Salt and Light Plus, at our website, slmedia.org. Today, let's continue to pray for peace in the Holy Land and peace in Ukraine. And let's pray for those who need the presence of ordinary angels in their lives. May you continue having a blessed Lenten season. Thank you for being with us. I'm Deacon Pedro, and this has been the Salt and Light Hour.